Hello, everybody. Welcome into GSMC's Down by Contact Sports Podcast. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is Friday, March 28th. If you are just tuning in, we have a lot to get into today. March Madness finally showed up somewhere, just wasn't in college basketball. We did get our first overtime game, though. A crazy comeback, a historic day in March Madness, actually. We're going to talk about that, preview the games for today, talk about the craziness going on in the NBA, providing you an update with a fired head coach just 9 games before the season ends, where the playoffs stand right now with everybody, and a quick look at what's happening in baseball as opening day has come and gone. But before we get into any of that, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you're on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. You do either of those two things. A message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Friday, March 28th. But like I was saying, we're going to start off our show here talking a little bit about March Madness. 4 of 8 tickets have been punched to the Elite 8. The first 4 games of the Sweet 16 were everything we could have asked for. We're going to start off with the game that happened first, Alabama versus BYU. This is the first piece of history that was set last night. Alabama sets a tournament record for three-pointers made in a single contest, shooting nearly 50% from 3 while setting that record. 25 of 51 on the night. The fact that they put up 51 threes is insane. They now enter the top 10 for most points scored in a single tournament game. Most was scored at 149 points. Weren't quite there, but a final score of 113 to 88. We knew this game would score about 100 million points in it, right? That's what we were talking about. But for the final score of this game to be a combined over 200 points is wild. And a lot of that is because Alabama just caught fire from 3, especially in that second half, where they just pulled ahead and BYU had no answer. This was one of those games that, as we previewed, we said it was going to be whoever shot the ball the best. You can't really shoot much better than 50% from 3 while making a tournament record number of threes at 25. Alabama moves on to the next round, and if they can shoot like that, they can beat literally anybody on any given night. It doesn't matter if you're Duke, if you're Arizona, if you're Florida, if you're Auburn, if you're Houston, if you're any of these teams that are still left alive, if some team is shooting 25 for 51 from three-pointers, you're in trouble. You're not going to win that game. But the next game, the team that gets to play Alabama, the Duke Blue Devils, escape despite Caleb Love doing everything he possibly can to keep Arizona in the game. Finishes with 35 points, 5 3-pointers made. He was just simply outdueled by Cooper Flagg. Cooper Flagg puts up a 36-7 stat line. Colin Knuppel drops 20 more points. This was a complete team effort by Duke. This Duke team is very scary. We saw Arizona keep it close, although Duke never really felt like they were in danger of winning in this one. It was a tie game heading near the half, and then Duke started pulling away. Ended up being a 6-point game at halftime, and after that, everything was just Cooper Flagg and Duke all the way. Caleb Love kept Arizona, like I said, in the game. Respectable 7-point difference, was by far the closest that any team has been to taking out Duke, but so far this tournament, but still not enough. Duke advances to take on Alabama in a really exciting Elite 8 matchup coming up this weekend. On the other side of the bracket, we saw Florida take down Maryland. Florida pulled away with 3-point shooting and defense in the second half. That's not to tarnish anything that Maryland was doing. Maryland loses 87-71. They fall to Florida. Derek Queen had a good game, 27-5-1, but Florida just kind of did it by committee. They had 4 of their 5 starters and 6 total players in double figures in this one. Their leading scorer only had 15 points, but when you have 6 guys that get into into double digits of points, it's just going to be tough to beat another team out there. Maryland, like I said, I think a lot of the issues came from the coaching staff. There's lots of stuff going on with the Maryland coach. Probably, I'm expecting an announcement that he's going to Villanova soon, especially after losing this game. It sucks because this Maryland team, very good. They just ran into a tough matchup in Florida, and Florida moves on to play Texas Tech after Texas Tech escaped history. A historic collapse from Arkansas led to an overtime thriller, the first overtime we've had all March Madness long. Texas Tech was down 16 points at one point in this game with about 10 minutes to go. This is now the second biggest comeback of all time in the Sweet 16. Texas Tech did not have a lead until the three-pointer gave them a 77-76 lead in overtime. That was the first lead that they had since it was 5-3 in regulation. That is how long they were trailing in this one. A huge push, some big shots made by this Texas Tech squad. They really struggled. Arkansas hot shooting in the first half especially helped open up that lead, but at the end of the day, Texas Tech, with their three-point shooters, was able to claw back into this one. Arkansas went a little cold from deep, couldn't really hit one in the second half until it was a little bit too late. But then you had Williams take over from Texas Tech. He finishes with 29-3. He hits the three-pointer over an Arkansas Razorback. Moonshot of a ball, way high arc, not something you see all the time, to tie the game. Then Arkansas missed a tough shot at the end of regulation and the tip-in at the buzzer to send it to overtime, where Williams got the mismatch, backed down Richmond, and was able to finish inside, giving them a 2-point lead, where Coach Cal had a timeout in his pocket. Instead, with 5 seconds left, the ball across half court, they just let them run the offense. Probably was a mistake, but this is something that's been plaguing Coach Cal for a long time. He's been unable to really get past these huge moments. He's lost in the first round the last 2 times with Kentucky. Hasn't really been great. We'll see if Texas Tech can continue this momentum from a historic comeback, taking on Florida in the next round. But I'd love to hear your thoughts on any of this. What did you think of any of these March Madness games? They were all amazing. All of them. We set up a really great matchups coming up. Obviously, we're going to talk about Florida, Texas Tech. This one's going to be really interesting. Texas Tech, of course, one of the best three-point shooting teams in the nation, but Florida is just a complete team. We saw that with the amount of guys that were there in double figures. 6 guys in double figures last night. This is a Florida team that's going to be really tough, and I just think they're too good for Texas Tech, despite Texas Tech having that shooting advantage that can keep them, as we saw, in any game. And then Duke, Alabama, again, it's kind of similar to this Florida Texas Tech game, where if Alabama can shoot their best, like we saw against BYU, they can beat anybody. But Duke is just too strong with too many players up and down the team, up and down the bench as well. I'm taking Duke in this one. Both 1 seeds make it to the Final Four, but we'll have to see what happens when we make it to the final 4 teams in the Elite 8. We'll see how we get there. 4 games tonight. We'll preview each and every one of them coming up next here on GSMC's Down by Contact Sports Podcast.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits, I'm losing shit. A stupid myth, you choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift. Oh,
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
Welcome back to GSMC's Down by Contact Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is Friday, March 28th. If you were just tuning in, we just finished going over the overtime thriller from last night in the Sweet 16. In this segment, we turn our attention to the 4 games yet to play in the Sweet 16. That's right, the final game setting up the Elite 8 happened tonight. We're going to talk about each and every single one of them, preview who will be moving on in each of the bubbles there. But before we do, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you're on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Friday, March 28th. But like I was saying, we are going to get into our next topic here, that having to do with our Friday previews. Yesterday, we were 4-0 on our picks. I thought we were pretty good on our analysis too, but we're going to break down these games here, starting off with Ole Miss versus Michigan State. This is another one similar to Texas Tech versus Arkansas last night that's going to be a battle of philosophies. Michigan State is a team that's going to be big, physical, coached by a legendary coach, Tom Izzo. In this case, going up against an Ole Miss squad that got here largely around their three-point shooting prowess. This is a team that has shot 40% in every single game in the tournament, including 57% last time out when they took care of business against Iowa State, absolutely shellacking them. This is a massive game for both of these programs, and I really could see it going either way. It's tough to advance this far into March Madness without having a pretty great three-point shot, because of course, as we've learned, 3 points is more than 2 points. So that's something that's going to affect this Michigan State as this Michigan State team as they go further in, but they do have a really solid defense. That's something that's been able to propel them forward in this tournament. And their offense, as long as they're getting out in transition, causing some chaos on the defensive side of the ball, they'll be able to get in with their big, strong physicality and be able to mess up Ole Miss defensively a little bit, I think. This is going to be a really tight game, but I'm going to lean towards Michigan State in this one. I like the way that this team is built. I think they're a little bit more big and tough than Arkansas was, and because of that, I think they're going to be able to pull it out. Tom Izzo also historically a very good coach in March, so I'm taking Michigan State in this one. Then we have the potential team to face those two, as Michigan, the 5 seed, is taking on Auburn. Michigan is hot as anybody else right now. They won the Big Ten tourney. They're led by 2 7-footers. This is exactly the kind of stuff that Dusty May, who was the coach of FAU when they went on their big run a couple years ago, was building this Michigan team for March. He's been an excellent head coach in March Madness. When it gets to March, they go out there, they get a game against Auburn, who looks like the most vulnerable 1 seed right now. They obviously have played a couple close games. They went to the half, a very tight game against Alabama State, the 16 seed. Then they escaped a Creighton team that, they're good. It was still, it's tough. It's tough to be that close against a 9 seed there. Auburn does have a Player of the Year candidate in Broome down there, though, so it's not going to be easy by any stretch of the imagination. But the way that Michigan is playing right now, the fact that these games have been so close, there has to be an upset somewhere. I think Michigan is the team that's going to be able to get it done. Auburn, I think, is the weakest 1 seed. And out of all the ones that's not going to make the Final Four, I think Auburn is the one that I'm circling there. So I've got Michigan pulling off the upset here, setting up a Michigan versus Michigan State Elite 8 matchup, which would just be amazing to watch. Speaking of rivalries, we do have one this round. When number 3 Kentucky takes on number 2 Tennessee, this is going to be a rivalry game for the ages. This one I cannot wait to see. Kentucky is 2-0 this season versus Tennessee, 75-64 victory in Lexington, and then a 78-73 victory in Knoxville. That is how they got here so far. Kentucky's been ranked in the top 25. Tennessee's been ranked in the top 10. These two teams are very, very good. Kentucky's got a slightly better offense, slightly better three-point shooting, but their defense, Tennessee's got a much better defense when we're talking over there. So this, again, is going to be a battle of what wins, offense or defense. In a rivalry game, the stakes are always higher, and a rivalry game in the playoffs, the stakes are at its highest. This game is going to mean a lot for those fan bases. This game could really go either way. It's tough to beat a team 3 times in one season. It really is. Beating a team 3 times in one season is not something we see all that often. You don't even get the opportunity all that much. But the fact that these two teams are playing, it's not really going to be a home game for anybody. It's in Indianapolis, Indiana today. So you're not going to really see one side more than the other. They're both pretty close to Indy, so it should be a really interesting crowd mix over there between Kentucky and Tennessee. I'm very curious to see, but I think I'm going to take Tennessee. I just can't see them losing 3 times to this Kentucky squad. I like this Kentucky team a lot, but Tennessee, I think, is the one that is going to make it to the Elite 8 to take on either Purdue or Houston. Houston looks like a dominant force right now. They were able to escape against a really, really good Gonzaga team. Their defense is amazing, but what Purdue has with their pick and roll, with their guards and bigs could be really tough for Houston to deal with. Houston has always been built on their defensive abilities more than their offensive abilities, but when we're talking about these two teams, I think Houston is just different this year. And we say that a lot. Houston has been a team that has burned me many a times in March, but I just can't see a way. Kind of like with Duke last night, where Houston goes down in this one. I think any other game, whether that be Michigan, Auburn, Tennessee, Kentucky, or Ole Miss, Michigan State, all of those games I could see going either way. But this one, when we're talking Purdue versus Houston, this is the one that I'm just unsure about the ability for Purdue to really pull this one out. I love the offense and defense from Houston just a little too much, and because of that, I've got Houston to win this one. Move on to take either Tennessee or Kentucky. I've got Tennessee in that one, so it should be a lot of fun to watch. But let me know what your thoughts are. I'd love to hear them. What do you think of each of these matchups as we head into the final part of the Sweet 16? The weekend setup for the Elite 8 should be amazing. I can't wait to see it then. I'd love to hear your thoughts. But we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we turn our attention over to basketball. We've talked a lot about it, but really March Madness has missed the NCAA this year and gone straight to the NBA. Up in the big leagues there, we've seen a couple buzzer beaters in a row now. Let's talk about that. That's coming up next here in GSMC's Down by Contact Sports Podcast.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now. Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
Welcome back to GSMC's Down by Contact Sports Podcast. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is Friday, March 28th, if you were just tuning in. We just finished going over the March Madness Sweet 16 games from yesterday and previewing the ones for today. In this segment, we turn our attention to the NBA, where really the madness of March has hit. We have 2 straight nights with a buzzer beater involving the Lakers, 1 for, 1 against. Then we're going to do a quick check-in on where every team stands with about 10 games to go left in the NBA season. But before we do, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you're on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those 2 things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Friday, March 28th. But but like I was saying, we are going to get into a little bit here on the March Madness that has hit the NBA. Back-to-back nights. Like I said, we've had a buzzer beater in the NBA. The Madness skipped over college basketball, went right to the pros here, and now we've got the Lakers heartbreak after elation. Immediately. LeBron's tip-in to beat the buzzer over the Pacers 2 nights ago, immediately silenced by the Bulls, having a miracle comeback against them last night. Josh Giddey hits a half-court buzzer beater to give the Bulls a 1-point victory immediately after Kobe White hit a clutch 3 to tie it. Austin Reeves, on the other end, 9 seconds to go in the game, drives right down the lane, gets his shot to fall. He had an incredible night last night. Then Josh Giddey from half court chucks it up, down 2, goes in. Place goes crazy. Fans running wild across the court. That was an incredible game last night. We got to see the Bulls take care of business, and they have been red hot lately at the most important time. The Bulls, potentially, with the way that things are going, might find their way out of the play-in if they can get lucky. Right now, let's take a look at where the playoffs are, though. So the Cleveland Cavaliers will start off in the East, have that number 1 seed. They are among just 3 teams in the East that have clinched a playoff spot so far this late into the year, which is kind of crazy to see. But the Cavs at number 1, only a 5-game lead on the Boston Celtics, who have been really hot lately, and they're not even fully healthy right now. This is a Boston Celtics squad at 2 that could eventually maybe even take over that number 1 seed, although it's going to be tough with just about 10 games remaining. They're most likely going to be locked in at number 2. At number 3, the Knicks are the only other team that have clinched a playoff spot, and they're basically just fighting for that 3 seed right now. They're 13.5 games back of the Cleveland Cavaliers, putting them at 8.5 games back of the Boston Celtics, which means they could technically find a way up to that number 2 seed, but it would involve them going on a crazy hot run and the Celtics going on a crazy cold run. I can't see that going on right now. They're most likely going to be a 3 seed, but that's when it gets really interesting in the East. The Indiana Pacers, after a heartbreaking loss the other night, sit 16 games back of the Cavs at that number 4 seed in the NBA, in the Eastern Conference. That's just 2.5 games back of the Knicks. So they're right there fighting for that 3 seed. But the Pistons are right behind the Pacers. At the 5 seed, the Pistons just 2 games back of Indiana, 4.5 games back of the Knicks. This is a real fight for up to that 3 seed, all the way down to the 6 seed, where the Bucks, despite losing Damian Lillard, still have a shot to make it as the 3 seed if everything goes right. They're just 5 games back of the Knicks there. The Knicks without Jalen Brunson for now. They're going to need him back soon. Just half a game back of the Pistons, 2.5 games back of the Pacers, but I expect them to drop a little bit now that they don't have Bobby Portis and they don't have Damian Lillard for basically the rest of the season. As we get to the play-in side, there is a pretty big gap. There's a 5.5 game gap between the Bucks and the Atlanta Hawks, which basically sets up the top 6 playoff field to be what it is, but there's still a chance that the Hawks, 5.5 games back, the Magic, 6 games back of the Bucks, could have something going. The Magic are playing great, the Hawks are playing great, but the Bulls, just 1.5 games back of the Magic, 2 games back of the Hawks, trying to get to that top seed of the play-in, get that double elimination rather than that single elimination that they're in right now with the Miami Heat, are right there. So the Hawks and the Magic currently hold that 7-8 spot. The Hawks are half a game up on the Magic, while 2 games up on the Bulls and 3 games up on the Heat. Right now, it's anybody's game in that 7-10 range. There are still 2 teams that haven't been eliminated that are not in the playoffs, the Raptors and the Sixers. They're 6 and 9 games out from the Heat, so I don't really see them making it. But the field is basically set. Now it's just up to seeding. I could see 3 to 6 completely reshuffling. That's a real possibility. And 7 to 10 could also completely reshuffle. 1 and 2, they could flip if the right things go, but I think basically the Cavs are locked in at 1, the Celtics locked in at 2. I feel pretty confident in saying that the Knicks will be the 3 seed, but 4, 5, 6, anybody's game between the Pacers, Pistons, and Bucks. And 7 through 10, also anybody's game between the Hawks, Magic, Bulls, and Heat. But that's just the Eastern Conference. Where it gets really interesting is the West. The West right now has only one team that has clinched a playoff spot, and that is the Oklahoma City Thunder. Not only have they clinched a playoff spot, but 13.5 games up on the 2nd seed right now in the West means they've clinched the number 1 overall seed in the Western Conference. They're 13.5 games up on the young Houston Rockets, though, who have been playing really good basketball right now and are in a battle for the 2 seed that extends all the way down to the 7 seed. Maybe even the 8 seed in this conference could find plausibly a way all the way up to the number 2. But right now, the Houston Rockets, 13.5 games back of the Thunder, just 2 games up on the 3 seed Nuggets. When they get Jokic back now, is a little scary. 3.5 games up on the Lakers and the Grizzlies, who have the 4 and 5 spot, both 17 games back of the Thunder. That's right there. And then the Clippers and Warriors, 6 and 7, both 19.5 games back. They're only 6 games back of the Houston Rockets. The Timberwolves, 20 games back, or 6.5 games back of the Rockets. That is a smorgasbord right there, right? The top 8 seeds are all fighting for 2 to 8 right now, and it could be anybody's race. The way that these teams are playing, the way that momentum is shifting, the Grizzlies firing their coach, the Nuggets getting healthy, the Rockets turning it on at the right time, the Lakers going through a slump. The Clippers turning it on, the Timberwolves turning it on, the Warriors being 15-2 when their 2 stars are playing. This is anybody's race from 2 to 8 right now, and that is where you want to watch when it comes to the play-ins. But it's still not dead. The 9-10 seed race is alive and kicking as well. The Kings and the Mavericks currently hold those 2 spots in the Western Conference. The Kings 25 games back, the Mavericks 25.5 games back. So that is a half a game separating those. But then when we get to the teams out of the playoffs, the Suns are right there. They're half a game back of the Mavericks, 1 game back of the Kings. And don't say dead yet, because the Portland Trail Blazers and the San Antonio Spurs are both just 4 games back of that 10 seed, 4.5 games back of the 9 seed. It's a little bit more far-fetched for them to get in, but with the right set of circumstances, the right schedule coming up, I think there's a real chance that we could see any of those 4 teams any of those 5 teams take those last 2 spots. The Kings are kind of sliding as of late. The Mavs are going to be healthy. At the end of the day, I expect it to be Mavs and Suns with the Kings on the outside looking in. But again, that's the race to watch. The 9-10 seed race in the Western Conference and the 2-8 is going to be really interesting. If you want to break it down, the 2 and the 3 race between the Nuggets and the Rockets there, and then the 4-8 are all separated by 3 games or less. So that is where we need to watch heading in to the playoffs. Just about 10 games to go until the NBA season is done and we get to the postseason. But there was some massive news today. The Memphis Grizzlies, a team that is just 3.5 games back of that 2 seed in the West, has fired their head coach. We'll talk about that coming up next here on GSMC's Down by Contact Sports Podcast.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found. For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
Welcome back to GSMC's Down by Contact Sports Podcast. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is Friday, March 28th. If you were just tuning in, we just finished going over the NBA playoff picture, the madness that's been going on in the NBA recently, and where everything stands as teams get hot, get cold, and we reach the final 10 games to go. In this segment, we turn our attention over to the major breaking news from the day, as the Grizzlies have fired head coach Taylor Jenkins. We'll talk about that in just a second. But before we do, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you're on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Friday, March 28th. But like I was saying, we are going to get into here a little bit on the Grizzlies firing head coach Taylor Jenkins. Taylor Jenkins has been with the Grizzlies for 6 years now. He's been over 500 on his career there. This is just a little bit of a head-scratching move. And it's not necessarily because it's so crazy that they're firing Taylor Jenkins. There have been some issues with Taylor Jenkins not getting the most out of his players. Talking to some Grizzlies fans, hasn't had the greatest scheme fit for the players that they have. But the real puzzling thing is the fact that it happened now, with just 9 games left in the regular season. This is a move that, unless there was something that came out, although the GM put out a statement that said we wish him well in the future, so I doubt if something came out, they would put that statement out after firing him. The timing just makes no sense to me. The Grizzlies, like we talked about in the last segment, are firmly in the playoff race, still in play for that number 2 seed. But it's not just that they're still in play for the 2 seed, it's that they're sitting at the 5 seed right now. 3.5 games in a good direction, that puts them tied for the 2 seed. 3.5 games in a bad direction, Now that puts them in 8th place in the conference. That puts them strictly in that play-in zone. This is a very important time for this team, and I understand they're dealing with injuries, and I understand that Taylor Jenkins might not have been the best answer in the long term, but the big head-scratching decision is why now? Why, with 9 games remaining in the regular season, do you move off of Taylor Jenkins? And honestly, I haven't heard too much. Again, this is not something that I necessarily disagree with, although I personally would not have moved off of Taylor Jenkins. I don't think this is a decision that's going to set them back years. I don't think he's that good of a head coach that, not having him and moving on to another option is going to be just the wrong decision, right? There's ways that this could work out. Like we've seen similar teams get a new head coach and then take it to the next level. But Taylor Jenkins is a solid head coach. He's probably going to be the most lauded over option when it comes to the head coaching cycle this year in the NBA. Where he might go, potentially to the Spurs if Greg Popovich decides not to continue coaching after having to sit out the rest of this season. Maybe he goes and takes the job left open for the Kings, right? The Kings fired their head coach. They're working with an interim right now. Maybe he goes over there. But I think right now, the big question on everybody's mind, especially mine, is just why now? The Grizzlies, like I said, are right in that point where these 10 games mean so much. But outside of that, having a new coach entering the playoffs is kind of wild. Maybe you get that new head coach boost, and that happens. Getting that new head coach boost is a real thing. But I'm curious how this is going to affect Memphis, what's going to go on in the head coaching search now. And really, I'm just more curious for more information to come out, because there's been very little information other than he was fired today. And that's all that we get. He's no longer with the team. He had a meeting in person with the GM, and now he's gone. 9 games left to go in this season. Sitting tied for that 4th seed in the Western Conference, 3.5 games out of the number 2 seed. They could basically have home court advantage all the way up to the Western Conference Finals if they go on a little bit of a run here. If they get healthy, if they go on a bit of a run. And this is a team that I really do like. I like the way this team is built. You've got the defense, you've got the superstars. This is just a head-scratching move to me. Doesn't make any sense. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts. Do you guys have any idea why this move was made? Do you guys have any idea why the timing, really more than anything, was now? I'd love to hear your thoughts. It's a confusing move. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But let me know. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, opening day in the MLB was yesterday. We saw history. We saw amazing pitching outings. We saw streaks continue to thrive. And we saw the Orioles hit a bajillion home runs. We're going to talk about all of that coming up next here on GSMC's Down by Contact Sports Podcast. Welcome back to GSMC's Down by Contact Sports Podcast. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is Friday, March 28th. If you were just tuning in, we just finished going over the Grizzlies firing their head coach, Taylor Jenkins, after 6 seasons with just 9 games to go in a season where they're still fighting for a potential 2 seed in the West. Crazy stuff over there. In this segment, we turn our attention to baseball. Opening day has come and gone. We're going to talk about the crazy stuff that happened, the streaks that continued, the historic pitching outings by some players, and more. But before we do, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you're on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything that you would like to ask, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Friday, March 28th. But like I was saying, we are going to get into the biggest storylines from MLB Opening Day. And we're going to start off in the nation's capital, where we saw a pitching duel unlike anything else. We saw Mackenzie Gore versus Zach Wheeler in this one. A crazy pitching duel between those two. This was exactly what we were expecting out of Zach Wheeler. He goes 6 innings, 2 hits, 1 earned run, and a Keibert Ruiz home run with 8 strikeouts and 2 walks, 97 pitches. But the story of the day was from the other side. Mackenzie Gore, a left-hander for the Nationals that has been just on the cusp of breaking out for a very long time, goes 6 scoreless innings, only allowing of 1-hit baseball, faces the minimum amount of batters, and has 13 strikeouts. 13 strikeouts, faced 18 batters is insane. Kept it under 100 pitches as well. 93 pitches, 66 of them for strikes. That is a stat line that has only been done on opening day by Bob Gibson in 1967. Bob Gibson, the proud owner of the lowest ERA in the history of baseball. The Nats still lost, though. This one went to extras, 7-3 victory in extra innings for the Philadelphia Phillies, but Mackenzie Gore goes out there and puts on a show. 13 strikeouts on opening day. That is some of the best opening day performances we have seen in a very long time. We also had some streaks continue. One of the most famous streaks for opening day, Tyler O'Neill. His 6th straight opening day with a home run. 6 in a row where he's had a home run on the first game of the season. That's a part of the O's absolutely bombshelling the Blue Jays with 6 home runs. That ties a record on opening day. They dropped 12 runs in Toronto. It just was not fair. Bomb after bomb after bomb. They went out there and dominated that game like they had something to prove after last season. They went out there, played amazing. Tyler O'Neill continues one of the more amazing streaks in baseball. 6 straight seasons with an opening day home run is incredible to see. Kyle Manzardo of the Guardians was just a single shy of the cycle in an extra inning win over the Royals. He gets on base 4 out of 6 at-bats, 3 hits, triple, home run, and a double. Just could not complete that single on the leg of the cycle. Would have been really cool to see, but they escape in extras over the Royals there. The White Sox, how about them? They are on pace to go 162-0, coming off of the worst season in MLB history. They go out there and they rout the Angels 8-1. So bad that the Angels were forced to use a position player on the mound on opening day. That is how crazy this was for the White Sox. They get their first win at home since 2014 on opening day. A crazy stat for them. Mike Trout was hit on the hand in his first at-bat. He seems like he'll be okay, but that's something to watch. And there were a couple of debuts to take a look at today. Obviously, Juan Soto gets his first debut as part of the New York Mets. He goes 1 for 3. His first at-bat started off great. It was a single, then he walked twice. but he also was the last out, striking out swinging on a pitch way outside the zone from Josh Hader and on way to a 3-1 loss for the New York Mets. Juan Soto is going to be really good for this Mets squad. Wasn't his best game last time, but does what he does, right? He 1 for 3 on the day, 5 at-bats, gets on base 3 times. He just gets on base better than anybody else, which is a huge boon to everyone around him. Outside of that, the Giants dropped 4 runs in the 9th, completing an opening day comeback over the Cincinnati Reds in Great American Ballpark. The final score of 6-4, it was 2-3 with the Giants losing entering the 9th. 4 runs scored, 2 home runs, including a 3-run home run to really break this game wide open. The Reds did their best. They were able to answer back with 1 in the 9th, but it wasn't just enough. It just wasn't enough, leading the Giants to an opening day victory as the Reds drop once again on opening day here. Outside of that, a couple other debuts. We saw Paul Skeens, his opening debut, got a little bit wasted by the Pirates bullpen. He exited after going 5 1/3 innings of 3-hit, 2 earned run baseball. 7 strikeouts, just 2 walks on 94 pitches. He went out there with the ability to win this game. Instead, well, with a 2-1 lead, him exiting, they lose this game 5-4 on a walk-off, our first walk-off of the season, with a Stowers single to left, advancing the Marlins to their first victory of the game. Was a pretty good day of baseball the other day. We saw a lot of good. We saw a lot of extra innings. We saw walk-offs. We saw everything you possibly could have wanted. This is a great way to kick off the MLB season. Can't wait for 161 more games of this. That's coming up throughout the rest of the season, and I'll see you all then. Thank you, everybody, so much for tuning in to today's episode of GSMC's Down by Contact Sports Podcast. I have been your host, Jeremy Lapidus. We will be back tomorrow talking everything from around the world of sports. I should say Monday. Everything that happens this weekend. We'll talk about the Elite Eight. We'll talk about the Final Four, that will be set up after this weekend. We'll talk about the Elite Eight games, everything from around the world of baseball, and some news from football as well. I'll see you then. Bye-bye.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn, ain't that great. I don't wanna go to Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn, ain't that great. I don't wanna go to